Welcome everyone to the first in a series of challenges I will be setting for myself in the Elder Scrolls games. Today we'll be finding out if I can beat the Gatekeeper of the Shivering Isles on max difficulty without using the special quest items which make him easier to beat. Obviously, Bethesda intended for players to do the quest centered around the Gatekeeper, where you can make arrows made up of the bones of a previous Gatekeeper with the help of Jared Ice Veins.
I'm Jared Ice Veins. Do you ever wonder why things look better without their skin on?
And or collect the tears of Relmyna, the woman who created the Gatekeeper, and use them as a poison. The bones are presumably scripted to do extra damage to the Gatekeeper. It was actually hard to find a source for that, so I'm just guessing here. And the tears cancel out the Gatekeeper's passive abilities, which are a resistance to magic, resistance to poison, and most importantly, a constant health regen. That last part is going to be the biggest hurdle for me throughout this challenge. To make the challenge more fun for me, and I play in it, I didn't look up any of these details beforehand. I just went off of what I remembered from playing the original Shivering Isles years and years ago. I also made this challenge as hard for myself as possible by coming up with 11 restrictions to impose upon myself. My goal is to beat the Gatekeeper while breaking as few of these as possible. First and most important, beat the Gatekeeper on max difficulty. Next, no bone arrows. And no Relmyna's tears either. No buffs on my character. Or, if this condition turns out to be too strict, then at least no skooma. Next, no bought items throughout the playthrough. And no stolen items. Next, beat the Gatekeeper at level 1. Also, no grinding skills, and no skills above 50. I've had some discussions about the level 1 part. Some people would think this actually makes the challenge easier, since enemies like the Gatekeeper scale to the player's level. I disagree, because trying to make strong attacks with only the items available at level 1 is much harder. You might see what I'm talking about later in the video. Next, no followers. This is important, as followers don't seem to be affected by the damage reduction on the player when the difficulty is increased, which would make them very powerful. Lastly, no overpowered items. This would mean no Russian for weapons like Umbra at the start of the game. We'll see how many of these restrictions I can actually keep and still beat the Gatekeeper. With minimal research and forethought put into this, I thought of 3 different strategies I would like to try. And so I want to introduce 3 different characters I'll be using in this video. First off is an honest-to-god orc warrior build. His favourite attributes are strength and endurance, and his skills include heavy armour and both blade and blunt, so we can make the best use of whatever weapon we find. I also picked the warrior birth sign, of course, so combining all that with the orc's berserk ability should give us an absolute beast for a level 1 character. Although using the orc's berserk will immediately break our no buffs challenge. I had a great time making this fella as handsome as possible, and since he's an orc, I named him Golf Grow Golflog. Next is a totally different strategy. If melee combat won't work, then maybe magic will. So this time we're going to make a pure mage character. I decided on the apprentice sign over the Atronach, since I don't plan on getting hit by any attacks, magic or otherwise, during the fight. And I think the fight could be long enough that I'll need my magicka to regen over time. This fella's going to be a complete glass cannon on max difficulty, so he'll be very reliant on his summoned skeleton to take all the aggro for him. I'm maybe being cheeky here, but I won't count summons as followers, since it's an ability that only this character will have. We'll see how strong Epoxy Skeleton is in this fight anyway. As he's a Breton, I gave him the appropriate name of Golf le Golf. Finally, my last idea for a strategy to beat the Gatekeeper is to try cheese him with a marksman. To that end, I'm making a fast, agile little wood elf who can hopefully get on top of some rock or something and just shoot the Gatekeeper until he dies. As far as I remember, the Gatekeeper has no projectile attacks, so taking damage won't be a concern, and I can focus entirely on dealing damage. You'll see from the pictograms on screen that I picked alchemy for this last character, and that will be very important later. I couldn't think of a lore appropriate name or a golf pun for this fella, but his high speed and round head reminded me of Pikachu, so that's what I called him. By the way, I'm sure you're all wondering for a while now why my game is in Japanese. The reason is that I actually used to make content in Japanese and was doing pretty well on that channel until someone ruined it for me. I have a few interesting stories about the Elder Scrolls and their translations into Japanese, so if you're at all interested in that, then please smash that subscribe button. One really stupid thing about the Japanese version of Oblivion Remaster though, is that even though all this text on screen is in Japanese, it actually won't let you type any Japanese yourself for your character's name. Anyway, it's time to get out of the sewer and try out our first contender, Golf Grow Golflog. First off, I try out Grow's abilities on the bandits just outside Vilverin. I actually surprised myself by winning the fight pretty straightforwardly on max difficulty. Feeling confident, and honestly worried that this video might end up too short, I head straight to the Shivering Isles. Grow's next test is this one Grummite near the entrance, and this time it's a hard-fought win. That confidence I just mentioned before, yeah, that's gone now. But one thing that keeps me hopeful is the fact that these adventurers, who are scripted to lose to the Gatekeeper to show off how strong he is, carry full sets of steel armor and weapons, which I think is a pretty substantial free upgrade for the start of the game. Let's test out Grow with all this new gear.
Round 1. Fight!
I use my Orc ability to give me a boost, and then I move in for the kill. And I miss my attacks. My sword is apparently shorter than it looks in first person. But don't worry, I'll get back in there and this time land a hit. Look at all that damage I'm doing. Yeah, this isn't going to work.
Round 2. Fight!
Just to be sure, let's turn the difficulty all the way down and make sure the Gatekeeper isn't just invincible to me. Just to make sure we're all on the same page about that, let's discuss what I mean by the Gatekeeper being invincible. You see, when the Gatekeeper is fighting those adventurers at the start, not only can the adventurers not damage him, but I'm pretty sure the Gatekeeper becomes invincible, or at least resistant to damage from the player until all the adventurers are dead. Thus, you can't even start this challenge until you wait for this scripted fight to end. You'll see this become a recurring problem during this challenge. Anyway, now let's give this a go on very easy with this cool third-person camera. Once again, use the Orc buff and just charge in there. Okay, so it's clearly not an invincibility problem. My DPS just sucks on very hard difficulty. Let's see what it looks like on normal difficulty next, just to test things out. And here we can clearly see the problem is the Gatekeeper's health regen. It's just too fast for us. Myself being more of a Morrowind player, I try to steal some alcohol to see if I can spam strength boosts. But it turns out that in Oblivion, cheap alcohol just restores fatigue. That's no use to me, of course. So I think it's time to try out a different character, and I decide to test out the fella who I think has the best shot, Pikachu. Right away, the difference in movement speed is palpable, but testing out against these bandits here, I realise I defo need to work on my aim. DPS is still clearly an issue as well that needs to be addressed. Just look at me struggle to take down this mud crab. My big brain blast idea is to make damage health poisons. I had a look on the UESP wiki and researched what ingredients cause damage health. It turns out pretty innocuous things like apples and grapes have the damage health effect. So I head to the Imperial City and start rummaging through boxes on the street like a homeless person. After that yields no results, my next trick is to head into the shops. And yes, I will be giving up on the no stealing condition for Pikachu going forward. Now, this will be something I do many times in this challenge, so listen carefully. When you're in a shop or someone's house, the NPC inside will follow you around so that you're always in their line of sight. They can do this even if you're fully invisible and if you're not detected, by the way. This, in theory, makes it harder to rob all their stuff and open doors marked as trespassing. In reality, it's extremely easy when you're a spry little wood elf like Pikachu to lead the NPC somewhere out of the way, and then quickly run out of sight and steal or lockpick to your heart's content before the NPC has time to catch up with you and get you back in their line of sight. By the way, I'm looking for simple things like apples in this building, but funnily enough I find skooma in this fella's living quarters. Might be worth remembering for Grow if I go back to him and give up on my no skooma condition for this challenge. I end up not finding any apples or grapes, but I remembered that there are vineyards outside of Skingrad though, so I get tons of grapes there. Only now, however, do I realise that, if damage health is further down the list of effects for an ingredient, then you need a sufficiently high alchemy skill to even get that effect out of the ingredient. So, while I stew in my misery at this realisation and rethink my strategy, I might as well join the Mages Guild and take all their free alchemy equipment.
I expect this will end in disaster.
Then, after hours of wandering the wilderness and getting one-shotted by imps, I eventually gather enough ingredients to make some damage health poisons, thanks especially to the ingredient Nightshade, which apparently in Japanese is called Beradonna. Now that I have some poisons, Let's try them out on the Gatekeeper. My thinking at this time was that using the same poison repeatedly would not stack the damage, so I was hoping that one poison would be enough to counter the health regen while I slowly whittle him down with arrows. The damage health poison I was able to make had this effect: 3 points of damage for 11 seconds. I had no idea at the time if this was good enough or not.
Round 1. Fight!
So, once again, I'm being an idiot here by starting to attack the Gatekeeper while he's still fighting these adventurers, but this time I don't think it caused an issue in the long run, because, as you will see shortly... Aha! Look, his health did go down after they were all dead. So we are confirmed doing some damage to him with our plain arrows. Let's start running away and firing at the same time while using our poisons. If we can just keep landing hits over and over while keeping him poisoned, I'm hoping we can start to see progress on that health bar. At this point, I think I was deluding myself into thinking that his health was actually going down. I try to climb onto some rocks so I can freely shoot him without having to run, but it looks like he got bored with fighting me. I catch up to him and find some nearby high ground. I can now shoot him to my heart's content and he can do nothing about it. And this accomplishes nothing. So, because at the time I didn't know poisons could stack, hint hint, I switched again, this time to Golf. This one will start out a bit differently, as I think I need to collect Welkin stones in Vilverin to recharge Magicka during the Gatekeeper fight. This is a great chance to test out my Skelly on the bandits. I see that he seems to die after 2 hits from the archer, but he also destroys their health, which is a really good sign. These bandits, by the way, don't seem to be very perceptive.
I'd better cut down on the ale. Starting to see things, I am.
Anyway, I get me Welkin stones, and it's time to head back to the Shivering Isles.
Round 1. Fight!
My fireballs appear to be doing literally nothing, even worse than Pikachu's arrows. Skelly actually takes out a nice chunk of his health, but he gets one-shotted by the Gatekeeper. This is pretty hopeless. Just in case, I reload and only start attacking the Gatekeeper after the adventurers are dead. It looks like the Gatekeeper heals so fast that by the time he reaches me, he's forgotten I even started a fight with him. I'm literally not even registered as a threat to him.
Round 2. Fight!
Even testing on normal, I see that Golf can't even make a dent. I found out after this point that the Gatekeeper's passive regen rate is 8 HP, while the Flare spell does only 6 damage. So yeah, it's literally impossible for our mage to outpace the Gatekeeper's healing as is. I don't think we'll be able to get a powerful enough spell without overtraining Destruction, which is one of our challenge conditions that I really don't want to break. So, we're gonna have to give up on poor old Golf. You can see here where I got fed up and took out my sword to see if it could do any better than the Flare spell. And yeah, clearly it does do far more damage. I guess magic scales weirdly with the difficulty settings. After doing some research on powerful weapons you can get at level 1, because yeah, I'm breaking that rule now, I decided to get the Frostworm bow for Pikachu. I head to Shadenhall and procure a horse for a very reasonable price. After realising that it's actually easier to traverse mountains on foot, I eventually reached Dive Rock. I also learned that the mountain areas are probably the best looking in Oblivion Remaster, although that probably doesn't come across well in this footage of me walking along these near 90-degree cliffs. So anyway, here I am at Dive Rock, sneaking around looking for that invisible troll, and eventually I find it, glowing way off in the distance. After wasting like half an hour landing sneak attacks on it from a million miles away, I realise we have a familiar problem on our hands. Trolls also regenerate health. Eventually, I cave and say that technically I only need to beat the Gatekeeper on very hard. It's my video, these are my rules, and I'm my own referee. Thus, I get my bow, with 15 points of frost damage. Of course, what's a visit to Dive Rock without someone diving off? I don't have the Adoran fan with me, so I'll just have to handle it myself. I tried to look up if there were any strong enchanted arrows available at level 1, or even some basic unenchanted arrows, better than the crap iron ones I have. But the best I could find were 2 epoxy silver arrows, and I don't even remember where I got them. Maybe the corpse at Dive Rock? If you know cool arrows I could have gotten at level 1, let me know in the comments. Even NPCs that supposedly have leveled enchanted arrows in their inventory according to the UESP wiki turned out to have no arrows at all at level 1. I decided it's worth a shot to see if just the Frostworm bow can make a difference. And of course, Oblivion decides to be Oblivion and breaks.
What? Goodbye. Bye.
This should be easy.
So while apparently not fully immune, he is definitely buffed while the adventurers are alive. Because even after changing the difficulty to very easy, he's impossible to kill. Look at this. In case you still didn't believe me on this earlier, here's your proof. Eventually I realise I have to use the console to kill all these bugged out fellas so that I can finally get to my fight with the Gatekeeper. Look, after I do so, I can one-shot him on very easy. Now with that out of the way, let's see can we at least kill him as we are now on normal.
Round 2. Fight!
No good. It looked like if I had a huge supply of these weak arse poisons, I'd eventually snowball the damage enough on normal, but there's no way I'm beating him on very hard. Alright, screw this though. It's time to pull all the stops. After some question posting on Reddit, thanks to all who commented by the way, I used the UESP Wiki's alchemy calculator and find out I can make double poisons at my skill level. Damage health plus fire damage, and damage health plus frost damage. I look up all the unique locations, like random people's homes in Bruma and the Mages Guild in Leowin, for the necessary fire and frost salts. There's only a small handful of each of these in the whole game. This is what makes playing at level 1 an extra challenge. If I was allowed to level up, I could just farm the enemies that drop these ingredients naturally, but they don't show up until your level is in the teens. So now, armed with my small number of super potions, I need to pray that this is enough to do the job, because there's a hard cap on how many of these I can make at level 1.
Round 3. Fight!
We did it! We beat the Gatekeeper at level 1 on max difficulty, and the only additional challenges we couldn't get were no stolen items and no powerful weapons. I had to cut out a lot of footage of me figuring out this challenge as I went, and there were so many test fights against the Gatekeeper I had to cut, and so many hours of me just wandering the wilderness for alchemy ingredients while getting harassed by wolves on very hard mode. The editing was also a nightmare, but it was all worth it. This was a fun first challenge and my first video like this at all. I hope it was as fun to watch as it was to make. If you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. It would really mean so much to me if this video did well. I already have loads of ideas written down for my next several videos, and if you follow my channel now, you'll catch my first community post, where I'll ask people what they want to see first. I would also love to start streaming myself playing the game for these challenges, but for that I'd need to justify the cost of a much better internet connection. That's why, even though this is just a new channel, I've opened up a Patreon account already, just in case any of you would be interested in supporting the channel right away. I'll put more and more effort into each video from here on to convince more and more people to contribute. The lowest tier is just €1 a month, and I've put all the perks into that tier. As I mentioned before, I used to do videos in Japanese before they got deleted, and I have them archived on my Patreon, if by any chance that would be of interest to anyone. I played the Elder Scrolls games and Persona in Japanese, so if you don't mind reading subtitles, there's already Patreon exclusive exclusive content up there for you. Ooh. Anyway, thanks again to everyone who watched all the way to the end. Yous are the best. See yous for the next one. Bye, 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 bye.